everybody, we are back with another deck discussion profile for y'all today. I'm joined by the Kaiju tamer himself, my brother Bear, the one and only TJ. How you doing there, King?
I'm doing good. I'm doing great. I'm ready to talk Kaiju. It's gonna be a good time.
Hell yeah. But as usual with these deck discussions, basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off with like a quick breakdown of the list, just run through the cards, what they do, and then we'll kind of delve more into a deeper discussion on how TJ likes to pilot the deck, what he kind of looks for in the early and mid game so that he can set up for the late game push, some strengths, weaknesses, good matchups, bad matchups, etc. So hopefully this video will help give you guys a little bit of a structure if you are looking to build Leviamon. It's a very popular deck right now. It's a very strong one in this meta as well. So definitely be prepared to play against it if you want to learn how to play with it. Hopefully this video does it for you guys. A couple of administrative things before we jump into the profile. We do have our link tree, which contains all of our socials, including our Twitter, our Instagram, our Discord, and our YouTube TCG affiliate links down below in the video description. Please do feel free to check it out. We also have the TCG player link for Sully's Abode, which is the local card shop that we go to every Thursday. So if you're in the area, want to play some Digi, come meet us every Thursday, 6:30. We're there, ready to have you. The community's growing, so it'd be great to see some more new faces if you guys want to come join us. Otherwise, without further ado, TJ, take it away.
Okay, so Leviamon. So we're gonna go, like Ben said, we're gonna go ahead and do the list first, and then we'll go into a bit of a deeper discussion about it. So to start off, I run 4 BT-6 Sunomon. Honestly, is just for the way I have the deck built, is probably one of the most reliable draw pieces of the deck. The really cool thing with Levia is that it's so toolboxy that you can really kind of change your build to fit your playstyle a lot more, because Levia himself is just a strong top end card. Obviously you want support that's going to work with him, but I happen to run a lot of stuff that's going to trash a card in my hand. It also works well with Biting Crush too, because Biting Crush, you'll pitch a card, ideally Levia, to Suno, but we'll get there. But that's my egg. Moving on to the rookies. I run 4 copies of BT-14 Goblimon, who has your turn once per turn. When one of your effects trashes a card in your hand, gain 1 memory. So pretty much is probably one of the most reliable ways for me to keep turns, because I run the Cerberus package in this, which all draw and trash a card. So he works really well with that, and with making the evolution cost cheaper, and even makes some of the options cheaper and everything like that. But it's usually one of my ideal targets that I want to evolve in the back.
For sure.
Then I run 2 copies of the new BT-15 Gizamon. Honestly, this card, I think people sleep on it. I see a lot of lists that don't run it at all, and I think that's wild to me. I know I just said it's toolboxy, but it has the effect of on play until the end of your opponent's turn, one of the Digimon gains on deletion, lose 1 memory. And then all turns, for the inheritable, all turns once per turn, when an effect plays an opponent's Digimon, gain 1 memory. So there's been so many times where I've used this in conjunction with Dragomon's effect, which we'll get to, but basically to play him out for free, give something the on deletion, lose 1 memory, and then do the whole Levia play, and then I'm able to keep turn because I got that 1 extra memory off of using the Gizamon's on play.
I've definitely been burned by that a few times.
It can be a lifesaver for keeping turn. Then I run 2 copies of BT-8 Psychmon. I mean, it's a staple. All turns, players can't reduce play costs. It just helps with your end up whiteboarding a bit, because you definitely can with this version of the build, against Death X and stuff. And just in general, other things to reduce play costs. It also helps against bunnies. Bunnies reduce play costs a lot, and Psychmon definitely can slow them down. And then to round up our rookie lineup, I run 2 copies of the EX5 Syakomon, who has on play for each of your opponent's Digimon, draw 1, and then trash 1 card in your hand. And then has the inheritable of all turns, once per turn, when an effect plays an opponent's Digimon, gain 1 memory. So same inheritable as the Gizamon. Syako is just really good for consistency. It's just a hard slam rookie if your opponent's wideboarding, to help you get some cycle if you need it. It works well off the Drago effect, just like the Giza does. So yeah, the reason I run 2 and 2 of the basically in the Gizamon is because those ideally are rookies that I'm probably going to pitch in hand early, if depending on what I draw into. And Gobbly is usually my ideal Digivolve target. But otherwise, they're still like, I mean, it's pretty consistent. And I know I only run 10 rookies, but I think the way the deck runs, it's honestly fine. It works really well.
Sure.
Anyways, moving on from the rookies.
What are your thoughts on EX5 Labra? Since you are running the Cerberus package now, what are your thoughts there?
I think EX5 Labra is okay. My problem with EX5 Labra is that I don't feel it is consistent with my top end. There's not like the only cards I'd grab back off of its on play would be the Cerberus X or Dober X
for sure
that I run in here. Nothing else would be recoverable. So I find that its on play is just kind of wasted more often than not because I never really find myself hurting to try and get one of those back from trash. And the Inheritable can definitely be helpful with Cerberus's effect, but I don't really find myself struggling thanks to Gobbly. Gobbly just feels like a more consistent option for gaining that one memory.
For sure.
Because even if I don't have the X-Antibody in hand, I'll still draw and trash one.
Nice.
No matter what I do.
Right.
So that's sort of my idea with that. And then I think the Giza and Siako are just my two tools that are help towards the consistency of the Levia focused engine.
For sure.
But that's rookie lineup. So yeah, I only run 10 rookies, but like I said, it feels pretty consistent regardless. There's definitely been a few times where I'm missing it, but luckily a lot of the level 4s are still decent on plays. And there's been plenty of times where my opponent will like do something kind of crazy with their turn 1. And like they'll put me to 3 and I'll just drop Levia for 13. I'll just hard drop Levia and say, hey, answer me. And there's sometimes they can't. It's just there. But anyway, so moving on to level 4 lineup. First level 4 we'll go over is I run 3 copies of the BT-15 Gesomon. It has blocker just inherently, and then on play or when digivolving, your opponent may trash one Digimon card in their hand. If they don't, you gain a memory. And then your turn, while your opponent has no Digimon, this Digimon can't attack. And then has the Inheritable of all turns once per turn. When an effect plays opponent's Digimon, gain 1 memory. So same Inheritable as the Giza and Siako and as a lot of the entire Levia line. He's okay. Having a blocker inherently is really nice. It's definitely come up a couple of times, but there's a lot of removal right now in the game, so it's not always super helpful. The good thing about him is that he helps trim down hand size. And he can basically set up to help turn your Dragomon's effect on. Because you can Evo into him, force your opponent to pitch a Digimon card if they don't have one in trash already. Because I've definitely had that a few times where I won't see Gesso. My opponent won't have anything in trash yet because I haven't deleted anything or checked security. But I have like the play ready and set up to like do like a Levia play. I just don't have anything to play on their side of the board.
Gotcha.
So Gesso helps with that consistency of making sure they have something in trash that I can potentially play out off a Drago and then activate like a Biting Crush or something like that.
For sure.
And then next level 4 I run is 3 copies of Octomon, who I hate the way they did his text box, by the way. It's very confusing the way they wrote it.
It is.
On play when Digivolving, if there are 4 or more total Digimon, play 1 Fujitsumon token suspended to your battle area. Then they have the whole Fujitsumon effect, which they couldn't have just done at the end. Which Fujitsumon token is just a purple Digimon with 3000 DP, and all turns this Digimon can't unsuspend and on deletion trash 1 card in your hand. And it has no level, which that does come up. And then there's the second part of the text block. If there are 3 or fewer, play it suspended to your opponent's battle area. So that's the meat and potatoes right there. That's the one you want. Right. 9 times out of 10, you're looking for that if there are 3 or fewer, which I feel like I've done misplays because it's like an afterthought in the text box, and I've seen other people do misplays because of it too. But he's very, very good for consistently proccing Biting Crushes, assuming your opponent's board hasn't gotten too crazy with Digimon. But so yeah, he's sort of just a fallback, more consistency piece for that. I do have a different variant of the build that I'm already planning on with BT-16, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But otherwise, all turns, the Inheritable is all turns once per turn. When an effect plays opponent's Digimon, gain 1 memory. So same thing as all the rest of the Levia engine. And then moving on to round up our level 4 lineup, we have Leviamon X-Antibody, who has on play, 1 of your Digimon gains retaliation until the end of your opponent's turn. And then when Digivolving, draw 1, then trash 1 card in your hand. Then if Leviamon or X-Antibody is in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, you may activate this Digimon's on-play effects. So pretty much, I do run some X-Antibody copies in here, which we'll get to when we get to the options. But I initially, when I was first doing this, I was just full Levia engine believer. I was running all Gesso, all Octo. I had a couple of Garuru in there, I think, just for consistency. But I was not using the Cerberus engine, and then you, Ben, started running the Cerberus engine, and you whooped my ass with it, because I think the Cerberus engine is so much better in the mirror match for aggression.
Right.
And also because it can just like choose not to play stuff out. It can just be like, no, I'm not going to. And you can also like set up certain plays to like punish your opponent's biting crushes and stuff. I think a lot easier with the Cerberus engine. But anyways, yeah. So it's very good, and Dobrex is a great consistency piece in general. And then he has the inheritable your turn once per turn. When an effect plays one of your Digimon, gain 1 memory. And that's the nice thing about this deck, is that no matter where you're playing the board, you're usually gaining memory somewhere.
Yeah.
Which is really nice for consistency's sake. It is a little bit of a bummer when you're kind of seeing the wrong pieces, but for the most part, it's usually pretty consistent. That's a level 4s. So I run 10 level 4s, same number of rookies, or same number as the amount of rookies I run. I've debated on cutting like some of them down to like just mess around a little bit, but so far it's felt good where it's at. I don't want to mess with it too much. I have other ideas for the build that I want to test entirely, but this so far has been working pretty well for me. Moving on to level 5 lineup. We'll start off with 4 copies of the EX5 Dragomon. This guy is by far your best consistency piece when paired with Biting Crush. He's just so good. He's such a good card. Is on play when Digivolving, your opponent plays one level 4 or Lord Digimon card from their trash suspended without paying the cost. On play effects on Digimon played by this effect don't activate. And then has all turns once per turn. When an effect plays an opponent's Digimon, you may play one purple Digimon card with a level less than or equal to it from your trash without paying the cost. And then Inheritable is just straight up piercing. There's so many times where because his effect is on player when Digivolving, I will just slam him down for 7. Because I'll have a Biting Crush on board, and I'll just proc the Biting Crush off of playing him. He's definitely a lot better than Waru Sidra, I think. Just in terms of the simplicity of how he interacts with Levia. But at the same time, Waru Sidra has its own merits. But I don't run any Waru Sidra in this deck because I think the Cerberus engine is paired better with everything else, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, there's not much else to say about him. He's very good consistency piece. He works well for playing out your own rookies. I've used him multiple times to play out Sykes, Siakos, Gizas. Those are my ideal targets that I want to play off of him. But yeah. And then moving forward, to run up our level 5 lineup is I run 4 copies of Cerberus X-Antibody. Who has on play, you may play one. You may play one purple level 3 Digimon card from your trash without paying the cost. And then when Digivolving, you draw one, then trash one card in your hand. If a Digimon card with Cerberusmon in its name or X-Antibody is in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, activate this Digimon's on play effects. This card is so much gas, and it's because of the Inheritable, which reads, when attacking once per turn by deleting one of your other Digimon, unsuspend this Digimon. This card alone, this engine alone, if you find a way to keep turn, which you very easily can if you have like X-Antibody Protoform in hand, along with the Dober X and the Gobblemon Inheritables, which is very often happens with this, you can very easily keep turn, go Levia, like clear your opponent's board, still keep turn because of the memory you gain off Levia, and then just swing for 4 checks. Or you can like do a play where you swing and like go into Levia X for 6 checks.
Yeah.
Because he activates his own Inheritable before you go into Levia, and then you just get crazy with it. And there's been so many times where I'll just open up Heat hand, like my first hand, build a line, be able to set up my opponent in a good way that like works out for me by like turn 2, turn 3, and then just go right up to Levia X and just swing for like 6 checks in a turn.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast you can be with a deck that arguably, like, some people say it will take some time to set up, but like the aggression is crazy.
Yeah, because I would say if you run like pure Levia engine, it's definitely a deck that plays a bit slower. It doesn't have as much aggression. It's definitely more controlled focused. And I think that admittedly, I think pure Levia does have very good potential, but the skill ceiling for it is significantly higher. It's a lot harder to maneuver and manipulate the board that way, and I think that there's often times where you just really can't, just because of other crazy cards in this game now. Not looking at you, Mr. ST17 Rapidmon, who just ignores deletion and bouncing.
My nemesis.
Crazy. Yeah, all of our nemesis, brother. Nemesi? Yeah. Anyways, that's a level 5 lineup. Moving on to our level 6s. The fabled Kaijus themselves. Levia and Levia X. We'll go ahead and we'll start with Levia X first, because that's the way that this list is probably going to pop up. But Leviamon X-Antibody has, from the trash, all turns. When an effect plays an opponent's Digimon or Tamer, one of your Leviamon or Digimon with X-Antibody in their Digivolution cards may Digivolve into this card without paying the cost. It inherently has Security Attack +2, which, when paired with 14k DP, is insane. And has the effect of 1 Digivolving if your opponent has as many or more total Digimon and Tamers as you. Delete one of their Tamers, then delete one of your opponent's level 3, one of their level 5, and one of their level 7 Digimon. This card's just gas. It's just so good. When paired with Levia and Biting Crush, and if you have a 7th Lightning in trash, you just go crazy. You just, like, their board's gone, you've gained probably a bunch of memory, and you just put a 14k 3-check body on board that potentially with, like, Cerberus Inheritable can just swing for 6 checks, or even possibly game next turn, but depending on where you have the security at, or how many cards you have on board. Something to note, which I'll go over this with Levia as well, is that the first part of their effect, if your opponent has as many or more total Digimon and Tamers as you, because Levia has an effect that reads almost exactly the same for the first portion of it, that applies to the first part of the effect. The second part happens regardless. So then delete one of your opponent's level 3, one of the level 5, and one of the level 7 Digimon. You're always deleting those no matter what. But it's nice that you do have the option of some Tamer control with Levia X, because so few decks get access to that. Or at least get access to, like, actual Tamer deletion, which oftentimes will just completely lock people out of that card.
Right.
So it's very, very, very helpful to have that in this deck, because it just offers you so much more control over the game state and the pace of the game. And then moving on to the truest iteration of himself, the big bad Leviamon. He has Security Attack +1, just inherently. 13 KDP, which is, it gets crazy. On play when Digivolving, if your opponent has as many or more total Digimon and Tamers as you, delete one of your opponent's highest level Digimon, period. Then delete one of your opponent's lowest level Digimon. So no matter what, you're deleting the lowest level. But if they have as many or more total Digimon and Tamers as you, you're going to delete the highest level as well. So the really cool thing about Levia that I found out the hard way is that, for effects like Grace Nova, for example, using my own pain as an example, because the deletion effect is all in one block of text, let's say you target a Grace Nova to delete it with the highest level portion of the effect, and the Grace Nova does its protection to shed 2 same level sources or whatever. They can't do it for the second part, because the way Digimon is ruled now is that you can't activate, even if it's not a once per turn, you can't activate an effect more than once per like iteration, or like during sequence, I guess. Sure. So because of that, it tries to delete the Grace Nova. Grace Nova does its protection, but then the lowest level, if the Grace Nova is the only thing on board, will hit the Grace Nova still, and they won't be able to use their protection again, because it's all still part of the same sequence, because it's all in the same block of text, which is dumb. It's really stupid, but it's how it works.
Yeah.
So that is one thing. And then all turns, not once per turn, which is even more insane. When an opponent's Digimon is deleted, gain 1 memory for each Digimon deleted. So it makes Levia just this scary presence where whenever something dies, he's going to gobble them up and gain a memory. He's just going to get crazy. Which it can work for stealing turn in certain ways. It helps you keep turn when you Evo into it, or you play him off of a Biting Crush. It has so many, it's such a useful effect, and the fact that it's not once per turn and it's all turns is just insane. But that sort of rounds up the Digimon lineup. like I said before, it's a little bit feels bad sometimes when you have like a certain level 5 and not really the right level 4s and 3s to match. Like I've definitely had times where I've had Drago over like Dobrex and Gobbly, and it's like, well, not really gonna get to use these all that well. But for the most part, it's very consistent, and you definitely get enough draw and search with the deck, which we'll get into some of my options which help with all that. In general, just to make it very, very consistent. And very, very scary because you can go from 0 to 100 very quickly. So moving on to the options. I run 2 copies of 7th Lightning from BT-15. This card it's really good. It definitely kind of is rough because it can sometimes miss things, which, to explain a bit better, it has the effect of main by trashing 1 card in your hand. Delete one of your opponent's level 4 Digimon and one of the level 6 Digimon. The security effect where it activates the main effect, and then a trash effect, which is really cool, which is all turns when one of your Digimon digivolves into Leviamon X-Antibody. By returning this card to the bottom of the deck, delete one of your opponent's level 4 and one of the level 6 Digimon. So the thing with this card is that there is sometimes in security where it will just straight up whiff, and that is kind of a feels bad, man. There's other times where it'll be straight gas, and you'll pop a level 6 and a level 4, and you'll feel great about it. It's definitely not a card that I think you want as a 4 of. I think it can be a little bit bricky at a 4 of because it's so specific with its deletion. But it has definitely helped me from decking out before. And it pairs perfectly with Levia X, who deletes a level 3, a 5, and a 7. So when paired with Levia X, when you evo into Levia X and you resolve his one digivolving effect to hit all those, you then have 7th Lightning to clean up the rest of the board. And the cool thing is, too, is that technically when you go into Levia X, depending on the board state, if it's more convenient to say, like, let's say you're going against armors and they have a level 4 on board and you want to, get that down to a level 3, you can activate 7th Lightning first when you digivolve into Levia X to attempt to pop their armor Digimon, have them armor purge, and then resolve Levia X ability to pop the level 3 that's under it.
Sure.
So it definitely has its uses, but I keep it at a 2 of just for consistency's sake and not to like gum up my hand too much. But it's still a good card. Next up is the other meat and potatoes of the deck, Biting Crush. This option is like, it is a Yu-Gi-Oh card in Digimon. It is a trap card, and it makes you feel so bad when you see it, but it makes you feel so good when it comes out of your security.
Yeah, true.
So the card is main by trashing 1 card in your hand. Delete one of your opponent's level 6 or lower Digimon. If this effect, trash a card with the 7 Great Demon Lord trait. Place this card in the battle area. And then all turns, when an effect plays an opponent's Digimon, delay. You may play 1 Leviamon from your trash without paying the cost. And then security activates the card's main effect. So this card is what helps set up all of your Drago plays. It sets up your Octomon plays. It is just a really strong option in general. It works really well with Gobbly and Suno because you can gain a memory off of it as well as drawing cards off of it. It's probably one of the best like deletion options in the game. And the cool thing about Levia is that it wants 4 of this card in the deck because it's like an in-archetype option that works perfectly with it. And the other thing that I forgot to touch on with 7th Lightning is that so as Biting Crush reads, you need to trash a card with 7 Great Demon Lords in trait, or 7 Great Demon Lords in trait. Levia and Levia X both count as that, but 7th Lightning also counts as a 7 Great Demon Lords. So it, running that other option also helps adds consistency to Biting Crush. When Biting Crush itself already is just such a cracked option, and normally you'll be seeing, you have enough top end with Levia X and Levia that you're going to see one of them. And it's also cool because it sets itself up because you can pitch Levia to just be ready to bring him back from trash as soon as your opponent either plays something by an effect on accident because they forget, or you force them to play something because of Dragomon or Octo. But that's it for that little part. Moving on, we run one copy of Purple Memory Boost. I mean, it's just a one-up. It's just a nice search piece. Sometimes you want to gain the memory instead of reducing costs, depending on what Floodgate rookies are on the board. It's something that I've considered adjusting the count on. Like, that's probably one of the cards I'd maybe bump up if I wanted to lower my level 4 lineup. But that's the cool thing about Levia is that the builds can be so varied and toolboxy. It's up to you how you want to do it, right?
For sure.
But yeah, so 1 copy of that. Then we run 4 copies of Wisdom Training. Not much to say here. I mean, if you're playing the Digimon TCG, you know training cards are the best consistency piece right now for any deck that doesn't run crazy amounts of different colors. I mean, reducing costs is huge. It helps you keep turns so easily, and it's the fact that it can grab anything that is of a matching color is just phenomenal. You can grab options, tamers, Digimon, whatever.
Right.
And then to round out the deck, we run 2 copies of BT-9 X-Antibody and 2 copies of EX5 X-Antibody Protoform.
Nice.
BT-9 X-Antibody is just really good for when you want to try and swing with like Cerberus or Drago, and then you want to evo up into Levia X. There's also been plenty of times where, because of that, or even Protoform, that my opponent won't consider the Levia X play because they'll play something by an effect, and they'll forget that I have a stack with X-Antibody and sources, and I'll just evo over that. There's not too much else to say. X-Antibody also, the BT-9 X-Antibody also helps you take turns sometimes if your opponent's too risky with their memory when they start swinging into your security. And I mean, the one attacking effect also works well with Levia to go into Levia X as well if you want to try and just try and get more damage in mid swing to gain some extra, just to gain an extra security check and then potentially unsuspend off Cerberus X. You know.
Yeah, for sure.
And then as for Protoform, to go a bit more in depth with that, because I know it's a bit of a newer card. It is main one of your Digimon with X-Antibody and its Digivolution cards may Digivolve into a Digimon card with the X-Antibody trait in your hand with the Digivolution cost reduced by 1. If it did, place this card as its bottom Digivolution card. And then security, it adds to the hand. And then the inherited effect that it gives is all turns when this Digimon would leave the battle area other than by one of your effects. From this Digimon's Digivolution cards, return 1 Digimon card to the hand and place 1 X-Antibody on top of your security stack. So basically the cool thing with Protoform is while also reducing costs for evoing up your Cerberus line and then helping you resolve their on-play effects, is also the fact that it offers you recovery in Levia, which is crazy. Because there are some times where you might be a little bit slow out the gate. And you just then like you push up a stack with this, the stack gets deleted because you have a bad security check, or it doesn't last past your turn of aggression that you utilize it with this in it.
Right.
And because they clear the stack, because they're leaving play, no matter what, as long as it isn't one of your effects, you get to recover a card and you get a card back. So you can manage to, like, if you're missing a rookie in hand or you're missing a level 4, level 5, whatever, yada yada, you get to add that back to hand and then you recover one, which is just great. It's such a good card.
Yeah.
And that sort of rounds out the deck.
Nice.
I don't run any tamers. I don't think you can. I think Analog Youth isn't a bad tamer. I think the purple mat from the Wergaruru structure deck, ST is it 15? I can't remember which one is 15 or 16.
Yeah, one of the two.
Yeah. That one is really good because of the the trashing from hand to potentially keep turn. However, I find that because Levia more often than not wants to have less cards on board than its opponent, running tamers just runs a further risk of you having too many bodies on board to resolve your effects properly.
For sure.
And you can't clear your own tamers like you can clear your own Digimon. Like you could potentially, toss out a Giza or toss out a rookie the turn before or something like that, and then have it depending on how game setup goes, you can have it swing and die in security and then be able to do your whole Levia X effects more properly, which I've done before. But yeah, that's the build.
Nice. What are some, I guess, like strengths that or like good matchups? Let's put it that way. Good matchups that you feel like, and what are some bad matchups for Levia?
So good matchups is literally any deck that wants to play something by an effect. Literally anything. There are certain decks that it is not as good against, but I mean anything from like Digipolice, D-Brigade, they struggle with this a lot. Bunnies can definitely be slowed down because they can't use the double Typhoons as well. Even like Sovereigns can have trouble if they're using the Baihu. Other decks that run Cerberus package in general are really good. It's really good into the mirror as well. And even like newer versions of like armors and Imperial also play things by effect too. If you play against a bird deck, that's right. Like anything that plays things by effects, this deck is going to just have a field day with.
And we honestly have a lot of that in this meta right now. Like even Red Hybrid to some degree can be playing out stuff by effect too. So, and that's
Leo as well. It's another good good example, which can be a little bit more dangerous because they're on deletions, but it's another like perfect example of this is a deck that wants to use Fortitude, play something by an effect, and you can punish it with Levia. And then as for weaknesses, I would say Levia's hardest matchup are decks that don't have much interaction. Now, admittedly, you run enough security bombs that in theory, you should be pretty okay against the OTK stack decks that hide in the back, that when they push up, reliably, they're probably going to hit an option in security. Most of the time, you would think. It doesn't happen for me, in particular. I've seen people that run my exact same ratios for options, and it happens for them first, second check every time. For me, no. But that's probably one of its hardest matchups, like Mirage and Garuru. I'd say even Wargrey to a degree, just because Wargrey has protections. And it has different instances of protections. So it can potentially resolve like the promo like Alterus and then also the Greymon X effect to keep itself alive, because those are two different protection effects that can resolve separately in the sequence. It's not using the same effect again.
I mean, I think Mirage too with burst mode evades both Biting Crush and 7th Lightning since it's a level 7, which is I think the rough part. So if it does get hit out of security and you're in burst mode, you're like, well, hee.
Yeah. I would say, funny enough, Mr. Mirage Master yourself, Mirage is probably its roughest matchup because of the burst mode. Because it goes level 7, it ignores Biting Crush, ignores 7th Lightning. The only thing it doesn't ignore is Leviamon X, but the thing is, Mirage doesn't play anything out by effect, so it doesn't care. So that's probably the hardest matchup. And the fact that there's not much game interaction in between you and a Mirage player until they're pushing up and going for game 9 times out of 10. Garuru is one that, but like again, Garuru is one that also can be pesky as well because they're just so fast. And if you don't have an option in security, sometimes you're just done. You just lose. Trying to think what else. Sometimes like bunnies can be a problem. Same thing with any sort of armors deck, really. Just because it can, depending on how their board setup is, it can be hard to really clear their board properly. If you don't have the right pieces in trash, it can take a lot more setup.
For sure.
And then what else? I'd say that's about it. I'd say those are really the hardest ones. Are basically decks that don't have any real mid-range gameplay, like traditionally. Just because Levia loves to play around like in the mid-range. It's very much like Black War Grey in that sense, where it loves to be in sort of a dialogue space with the opponent's deck. But if the opponent's not giving you that dialogue back and they're just waiting to push up and win the game, you don't have like a big sticky body that's gonna like be able to protect you. Because you don't have any inherent protections. You have the potential recovery with Protoform, but that's about it. But otherwise, the thing, Levia right now is arguably probably one of the best decks in the format, if not the best deck. Just in terms of its utility that it has available to it and its aggression. And part of that is because there's so many decks that play things by effects now. Even if you knock a Tamer out of security, that'll play a Digimon. That's playing a Tamer by an effect, so then you can resolve Levi X there.
Well, I think another thing too that adds to it, right, is that you mentioned Black War Grey and sort of the War Grey decks. Yes, we did see it top this past regional, but it's really sort of died off to a degree, right, compared to everything else. I think people have moved on from it for various reasons, for whatever it may be, but Biting Crush being an option that not just takes out a stack, which can be devastating for a lot of these OTK decks. Like you Biting Crush, if like you anticipate a setup, right? You Biting Crush a Garuru stack, they kind of have to restart from square one. If Mirage is in a sticky spot, like you do that to them too. It's the same idea. And before, like we've seen that with like Gaia Force or Kakaitis or whatever, where it's like a big option that costs a lot, but there's really nothing afterwards. Now with Biting Crush, it's a big cost option that, yes, gets rid of their stack, but they also, the majority of the time, they have to worry about it. Yeah, they have to worry about that delay effect where it could still bite them in the ass once again. And I think that's what makes it really... No pun intended.
Pun intended. No pun intended. You
pun
absolutely
intended.
meant it.
But yeah, like I think that's what makes it also super strong is that like second layer of removal with that one option card, which most people are running at a 4 of, so it's almost like an 8 of in that deck.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. It's yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like that's what I was saying before. Like Levia has the benefit of being a very strong card with good aggression while also having very good control options.
Yeah.
And the fact that its options are also in archetype and it's not just like this clunky extra piece that's like tossed in there is amazing. And the fact that it has like you said, the lingering effect where it can persist past its initial activation, it just makes it so much scarier and just so much cooler. Like I've played a lot of like OTK decks like BLs and Shine, and like they're fun, they're cool, you know, you push up, you win game, neato. But like I think some of my favorite games are like I think I've said it in like our commentary videos before.
Yeah.
Like I love dialogue. I love player expression and the back and forth match that can come from Digi because of the memory gauge system and how like things can work. And Levia is just like such a cool expression of that. And the cool thing with Levia too is it's a very like Levia itself is a very powerful engine, a very powerful deck. It's also like there's so much skill expression with it, right? There's so many effects that you can miss to resolve. There's so many like different ways you can choose to resolve a turn in order to gain the most memory or the most board clear possible that the deck can provide. And on top of that too, it's such a toolboxy deck. Like people run it with Belfi, people run it with Anubis. Like there's so many different top ends that you can run with Levia that work well with him. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, Kaiju. You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with the Kaiju.
Agreed. But yeah, I mean, it's been also like I know you've been looking forward to playing this deck, so it's been really nice to see sort of like your first iteration. Like I remember like when we first kind of we're going through like theory crafting and building it, and like watching your deck evolve over the past couple months and seeing you like progressively like you've been cooking a lot as of late too at locals too. You know, you've been consistently like top 2, top 3, you know, on the regular. So it's been great to see the deck evolve along with you as well.
Yeah. No, I'm not quite type 3. We have a lot of people up there now, but my record's good. Like I'm like 3-1.
Yeah.
I go like 3-1, 2-1. Usually lose one match somewhere. Jarrell.
But yeah, no, thanks for coming on. Thanks for doing this profile for us.
Thank you. Yeah, I was happy to do it.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys learned a little bit from the Kaiju Master, you know, how to run this deck, you know, what tips, you know, you can use to help build your profile. And like TJ said, this is a very expressive deck. This is a deck that really, like, you can make of it what you want to do with it. So, you know, let us know what you guys think of TJ's build. If you have any questions, if you have any sort of other lingering thoughts, hit us up in the comments below. Hit us up in Discord. We're always happy to answer questions for you guys. If you haven't liked or subscribed yet, hopefully this was enough to convince you to do so. We'd love to keep seeing you guys on our journey together, and you know we wouldn't be here without you guys. So thank you all for the support. You know, it really does mean a whole lot to us. So once again, thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and we'll catch you on that flippy flip. Bye bye.